Yes, Jamie Brown, Public Services Director. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Obviously, you've probably never seen any of these around town.
What are they?
All too common throughout our city, as well as, bordering our roads. We have crumbling sidewalks and missing in many locations. And a lot of our streets look like this, just kind of like a patchwork quilt of asphalt. We have switched, as you know, in the past few years, our methodology of actually repairing the potholes from cold patch, which we used to do, to a hot patch, where we actually cut out the entire pothole, replace with hot asphalt. While that lasts longer, that is not a permanent solution until we actually address what's under the asphalt itself, the subgrade, the base. We're going to have the exact same issues continuing over and over again. From our 2013 roadway master plan we had done by ADA Engineering, these are the percentages that came away. We do have 116 miles of paved roads in the city, and 27 that are unpaved roadways, which are alleyways as well. And we spoke back when we were doing the 2020 about doing it once and doing it right, changing the method in which we actually look at our construction in the city. While we're doing our roadways, we're going to also take care of all the underground infrastructure as well, while we're doing it all at the same time. How we actually did the study, the firm we used, they actually did a lot of cores, and they used the four characteristics they analyzed with the asphalt thickness, base material, the actual type, and the subgrade composition. This is an example of the cores that were taken. Anything that was less than 6 inches as far as base is concerned was considered deficient, and anything that was less than 1 inch thick on asphalt is considered deficient. And if you kind of, as you're making your way around town, if you look at a lot of the potholes we have, you'll look at the actual thickness of the asphalt, and some of it's like 1/4 inch. And it's salt, sugar sand underneath there. It's just not. Here's a perfect example of this is what they actually used to do the actual study itself, the technology that was used. What came of that is the pavement condition index. So every single road in the city is actually ranked with a value. This is the chart that kind of breaks down 100 actually being excellent, and 55 was the value we chose to kind of 55 and below is complete redo. Each phase in between there is a different type of fix as far as maintenance is concerned. What you're going to see on the next slide is there's a rule of thumb in the industry. There's a 3-point slide per year for each roadway. So it's been 2 years, so we, public service staff, use 6 points as an average, and we basically slid all of these projects from our 2020 project 6 points down. And what we came up with, initially, all of the projects you're looking at on these 2 slides, 69 projects in all, were totaling $4.8 million, and that was just maintenance, that was overlay, that was mill and resurface, that was not a complete redo. You actually factor in the 6 points, and now they slide to be 55 or below. The new cost jumped up to 13 million. So the difference in cost, we actually jumped up $9.1 million by not actually doing anything. We currently are having ADA Engineering update our pavement master plan from 2 years ago, since it has been a couple years. And we're also having CD and Smith update the stormwater master plan from 2012. So we're going to be coming in with fresh data, and those will both be ready in a few weeks here. Like I said, the previous slides was just kind of an exercise that we did to kind of show exactly how much more you're adding on when you're not really maintaining your infrastructure. When we get the real data, obviously some of those roads probably haven't slipped a full 6, and some will probably slip a lot more. So we'll be coming back to you with more data as soon as we receive it.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. So that you're clear, based on just the 2 years, almost $9 million more work, just doing simple guesstimate math and an estimation that's shown up on the complete tear up and rebuild road process. So it kind of gives you a 30,000-foot view of the severity of the problem and the issues that we're dealing with. I didn't know if you wanted us to go through the full presentation first, or, I see.
I see questions, Vice Mayor?
Just very quickly, just to go back to your $9 million increase. So in theory, I don't know how to ask the question, but if we were looking for $63 million before, based on the needs we have at the time. We'd be looking for $72 million today. Is that what I'm hearing?
In theory, yes.
I just want to make sure I've got the.
Correct.
Okay. And the other thing is, how many, I don't think we ever talked about this when we.
Can you use your microphone?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
don't use it. When we originally talked about the 2020 plan, I don't recall us ever really having much of a conversation about the roads that we had in the city that were actually good. We really emphasized the roads that needed the work done. What percentage of our roads currently would be rated as good or in need of very little maintenance?
For actual percentage, I would have to come back to you about it, so I'm not sure what the actual percentage is.
Can you ballpark it? Is it 10%, 20%, 30%?
May I just offer some info on that? Think about when we were talking about it back then. There was in one of our meetings, you actually mentioned just a repave of the roads that were, we talked about financing a repaving of the roads that were in good shape structurally, but maybe not, they might have patches and things of that nature. Looking at not just the cosmetic, but a functional pave as opposed to, and you did have numbers to that, I remember back then.
Yeah, initially, the 55 and below, which is what was covered in the previous bond issue, that was all of the complete redos.
Right.
Everything else technically should fall under maintenance, which would be in our actual annual budget. That would come from actual maintenance.
And how has that budget changed since the new lighting has been installed? I know that a lot of the costs that we had of that 500,000 or whatever it was in maintenance, 300,000 went to pay for
The
lighting.
street lighting project is no net gain. Basically, you're buying new LED lights with the savings of the electricity, so there's not a new injection of money in the maintenance portion of the budget.
So is it still a deduction of $300,000 out of that 500,000?
Correct.
Okay. Vice Mayor, follow up.
Just
Sorry,
one
go ahead.
last teeny question, that is, when you look at the scale there, what percentage or what number value is given to the road that is completely broken down, has failed?
That's 55 or below.
55 or below.
Correct.
So anything that would have been in the low 60s 2 years ago, theoretically would be now in a failed state.
Correct.
And you also mentioned, one of the interesting things that I took away from the whole 2020 research and the discussions over the many, many months was that over the years, when they took these core samples, look at these core samples, we had different types of road construction. Some were just completely not appropriate, as I recall, because there wasn't, I guess we kind of.
There wasn't a standard necessarily.
There wasn't a standard, a lot of follow-up on the city's part, so. And when I think about an inch worth of asphalt, that doesn't seem like a lot at all, to have a car or a truck or whatever roll over, but when you talk about a quarter inch, you're, a heavy rainstorm away from a failed road. And I'm just kind of curious as to get those things out there on the record, but thanks for the info.
Commissioner McBoyd?
Yeah, a couple of things, and just so that we can all become certified road engineers by the time we're done here. Obviously, even an inch of asphalt doesn't hold up a car. It's the sub-base, it's the base underneath it that's what's providing you physical support.
Correct. Our city
Asphalt's
standard
just
is, our city standard is 2 lifts of a quarter inch, so it'd be an inch and a half thick of actual asphalt.
Right, but my point is that the structural element is not the asphalt. The asphalt's just a ceiling
Correct.
and to keep you from riding on gravel. It's the gravel, the packed base, that's what holds up your car and trucks and everything else. Just so we are clear on that. Now, I had a question. You mentioned, let me make sure I understood it. On this scale, which I guess is sort of an industry standard scale, 55 and below, the road's toast, you need to redo it completely. And the other industry sort of rule of thumb that you mentioned is 3%, 3 point slide per year.
Correct.
Now, I don't know whether that's scaled for Florida, stuff probably falls apart faster here than elsewhere, but we'll go with the industry number. What's the lifetime of a road?
Anywhere from 20 to 30 years, depending on location, depending
So
on
if
what
I-
type of traffic. Is it
20 to,
20 to 30 years, depending on the actual location of the roadway itself? Is it
Okay.
a local neighborhood road, or is it an actual interstate? Is it,
right,
uh,
does it have huge trucks on it, does it have me and my bicycle, whatever? Or a lot of.
and in the frequency of-
Especially you and your bicycle.
Yeah, I'm rough on roads, man, they gotta charge me more. So presumably, a new road starts out at 100 points, or pretty close to
Correct.
it. 55 is a dead road. 55, 100 minus 55 is 45, divided by 3 is 15 years. That doesn't mash up with 20 to 30 years. Right? Did I do my math right?
You did.
I think I did. So something made, sorry about that.
$5.
I thought I turned it off, but, something doesn't, yeah, I did. It says do not disturb, right?
That's where your maintenance comes into play, in between, and that's if you did nothing after you actually put down your new road. If you didn't touch it at all, that's your 3 points per year, but there is treatment as you looked at the, switch the slide. As you move down the scale from 100 down to 55, you have those different phases. Each one of those has a different treatment level. Whether that's an overlay, whether that's crack sealing, there's numerous things you can do to a roadway in order to elongate the actual life of the road itself.
But my calculation, if the city were to do nothing, build new roads and then do nothing for 15 years, all the roads, on average, by that rule of thumb, would be gone again, we'd be back in the same place. Needing to spend that much money, plus whatever has come along with inflation and costs and blah, blah, blah. So it sounds like one of the messages is we need to figure out what's a reasonable lifespan for our roads. Is 15 a good number to use, because we assume we're not gonna do any maintenance along the way, or is 20 or 30 a better number? And what is our mechanism for making sure that we are gonna have the money to do that, for that, when they fall apart again? So that's something that we need to keep in the big picture.
I agree with Commissioner McWay in the sense that, we've been talking about it, we're going into budget here shortly.
Let's use it.
I've been kinda screaming about this for a couple of years now. We talk about that maintenance budget, that's why I keep bringing us back to that. We need to readjust that maintenance budget to make sure that we're being proactive, regardless of what we do or don't do or whatever in the future. We need to set that maintenance budget or at a much different level to be realistic and reflective of, we can't make the same mistakes of the past. We obviously know that we need a restart and a reset button here because nothing was done for 40, 50 years really, from a consistency, base, structure, examination, inspection of what roads were done right and what roads were done wrong, because we didn't follow up with that properly and to know. So we have a reset there too, but we need to make sure that we've got a good maintenance budget in our regular budgetary process that's realistic of the types of expenditures we're going to need to make on an annual basis.
And based on our actual plan, everything, a few years ago, 1.2 is the actual number.
That's what we talked about, yeah.
Every year for maintenance.
Well, we keep talking about it and I haven't seen it yet, so.
Well, just to be fair, you don't wanna spend that on roads you're gonna have to replace anyway.
Agreed.
That's where we get into this. But I think for finally creating the data, setting the system up where we have the road, I forget the program it's called, that monitors and tracks.
Oh, my paper.
Thank you. That as the city continues to rebound, that you have made a policy direction that we don't spend money in other places until we make sure that we've taken care of these basic maintenance needs as we go forward.
Right, but no disrespect, city manager, but of the 55 and below, there's still a lot of projects above that when we readjust it that are not going to be addressed.
Correct, but
And we can plan a maintenance budget for those projects that will not be addressed.
we need to do that,
Yeah,
but coming out of the deep hole that we've been in, there's been a lot of tug and pull on priorities across the city. But these are numbers you can't run from, and these are important, and your point's well taken. So a staff's challenge is to grow those maintenance budgets proportionally as we go forward. We hear you loud and clear.
No, I understand what I'm saying though, those
Yeah,
projects
it's-
that will not be included, if you're talking about what's gonna be replaced or whatever is above that, that needs to be planned for now. I don't wanna talk about it every budget cycle, we've gotta have it there, and if those projects are not gonna be touched by this, we need to start planning the paving projects for the roadways that are not going to be completely reconstructed.
And we now have the tools.
Right.
And now we're trying to find the gas to start to really kick that.
I'm ornery today, I'm just saying, I don't wanna go through another one of these cycles without having these dollars in there and then that budget planned. Period. I'm gonna be screaming Mimi this whole time. Okay. Christian, we quit?
Go ahead.
And to follow up, Mayor, on what you just said, would it make sense to actually say, you know what? Not only do we look at the roads that are a complete redo, but we say, let's just work out the numbers. What would it take to bring everything up to, I don't know, the 90% or 90-point standards or whatever, some reasonable number? And so the bond, or whatever it is that we're gonna use to finance it, I think Commissioner Maxwell said he was gonna pay for half of it.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah, he's such a good guy. Whatever that you actually say, you know what, why don't we borrow enough, if we're gonna do this, let's make sure that all the roads are up to a certain standard. So some of it, the big chunk of it's gonna go for the total redo ones, but also phase in for those various other ones, so that they're not sliding and in 3 years, a bunch of those are down in the same redo category, or, you know, certainly one of the things that I think people were concerned about the last time around is they looked at the list of what was going to be on here, and they looked at their road and they said, well, what the heck? I gotta sign a check, but my road's not even on there, and yet it looks pretty bad. So I don't know, I think what I would ask you to do as part of staff is, could you come back to us with what the spreadsheet would look like, the two requests. One is what the spreadsheet would look like for expenses if we were to take that whole list going from 55 up to 91 or 100, whatever the right category is, and fix all of those up to, say, 91.
We have those numbers, we did that during
Yeah, but
2020.
let's, I'd like to see them all at once, as well as the numbers for the below 55, so we know what that total is.
It was 125. 125 million, it was all of it.
We went to was it 82 was the cutoff point?
Whatever it is, I'd like to,
Yeah, I
It was
remember that.
82, and that was the last go round, and that's where we came up with the numbers we used last time, so.
all right, well, I think we ought to,
We're getting all the numbers updated right now, so we'll have more.
yeah, let's see those as an overview. The other one is, could you bring back to us, I can't believe that there isn't sort of an industry, and this is to follow up on your comment, Mayor, an industry standard that somebody out there says, you know what, cities typically should set aside X amount of dollars per mile. You know, there's some standard number that, you know, there's variance around it, maybe our number's a little higher or a little lower, whatever, but come back with that number and we multiply it by the number of roads and have some miles of road, have some idea of what our maintenance budget should be based on industry standards, and then you may have additional stuff that says we should modify it up or down from that.
And that's
He
the-
does, we have that.
That's the tools we have now.
We have that now, yeah. Vice Mayor?
That's the 1.2.
Yeah.
Couple of observations here. First of all, Commissioner McCoy, you were talking about 15 years and 3 points. Well, in the last 15 years, in my mind's eye, we've done no roads in this city, any material level of roads. And if we are talking in the terms of Commissioner McCoy, then every single road in the city should be a failed state. I just want to make that clear. If we haven't done anything with our roads in 15 years, then every single street in this city should be very close to a failed status.
It's an average, and when you take an average, you have to account for traffic.
Sure, I get that.
The types of traffic,
But all,
weather conditions, so And when a road gets closer to 55, it actually accelerates.
Absolutely.
So 3 isn't probably a good number. It's probably 4,
I'm
5,
trying
6,
to
7.
illustrate a point. The point is, we've done nothing in 15 years.
That's correct, and to one more point from earlier, the roads have been built
Just a few.
across the city, by different standards. We pulled some cores where we had asphalt that was almost 5 inches thick in some areas. In some areas, we had asphalt that was less than a quarter thick. We had some that was basically all sugar sand, and there was no base whatsoever, and we had base that was 2 feet thick,
Right.
2 feet thick, so.
Well, again, the purpose for us to be here this evening, as I understand it, is just agree that we need to do some, take another swing at this, okay? And that whatever, if an agreement is made, that staff will come back with questions that Commissioner McCoy and others have posed tonight to, put the details together as far as how we might move forward. The other thing too, and this kind of touched on what the mayor was talking about, as far as not putting money into roads that are going to fail, essentially. My understanding of any project we do, regardless of the money, is we're going to take the worst roads first, do them, and the best among the roads are going to get, this is my words, not anything the staff proffered, but the better roads are going to get the lion's share of the maintenance, because you want to preserve those roads. Is that how we're going to proceed? Is that, am I making a
I was
true
going,
statement?
that was actually the question I was going to ask, thinking that the
We have-
maintenance budget, the standard maintenance budget was covered the better roads. And we'd start learning how to take care of our roads and have budgets for them that are actually proper. And then any other additional
just
monies
want
that
to-
came in would be used for the new road construction.
And I think at least I'm under the impression that many people believe that, if we are fortunate enough to move forward with some sort of credible roads program, that we're going to see an increase in property values. We're going to see, a new investment in the community, which is going to translate into additional tax revenues for us that will help us build that road maintenance fund as we go forward. Because we'll have dollars available to us in the future that we don't currently have available to us. And you got that look in your eye like, I'm really going there and you really shouldn't.
He's the road man.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we can go to the next phase of the discussion. And I think we've got some good direction on information and things that we're actually actively working on, because ADA will have their data hopefully in the next couple of weeks on an update. On the PCO.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
more question.
Before we move on, another data request, because obviously whatever the numbers are, anywhere between 40 million and 120 million, they're pretty big numbers either way. And obviously, there's a lot of concern in the community and a lot of agreement that the roads are in pretty bad shape, many of them. So this is a very active issue for us, but it's also a pretty big check for people to write. And I would like to make sure that we have as solid a set of information to work from. I think Commissioner Maxwell's little logical analysis, we need to come back to that and understand why it is or is not correct, because to me it sounds pretty correct also. All our roads should be falling apart. So we need to think about that, but the other one that I'd like to see some data is we've made, and this was done before the last time the bond issue came up, we've made the assertion that don't worry, if we fix the roads, property values are going to go up, that's going to raise taxes, and it's going to pay for the whole thing. I am very, very concerned that we put out that without any backup. So if we're going to allow ourselves to say things like that, I would like to see some form of written backup of analyses from other communities. There are analyses I'm aware of that says if you line a street with trees, that will add very measurable, like $20,000 a house if you do the whole street, to property values. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I've seen the number. I've never seen numbers on what fixing roads does for property values. So if that's out there and available, we should definitely have it as either a positive tool or not a positive tool, whatever the numbers say. And so I'd like to see that becomes part of the background.
I care about the infrastructure in regards to everybody knows and everyone sitting up here has heard, seen, witnessed, lost a wheel, popped a tire, done whatever, listened to somebody who's had the same experience. We all know there's a problem, and we know we have to address it. So let's all work together to get to whatever we have to do and come to some sort of consensus on how we achieve it. Because, you know, just after we dealt with it the last time around, the vote, and voted down the bond issue, guess what? The first questions were being asked right here on this microphone. So how are you gonna fix the roads? So, we can't run from it, we can't hide from it, we've gotta go straight on and figure it out. We're all gonna have to come together on it. Okay, let's move on to the second part. Yeah, I'd like to ask, just for public record here of my fellow commissioners, I did not know about this survey that was being taken. Did anybody else here know about it beforehand?
I heard from the city manager.
I read it
Beforehand?
in the blog beforehand.
Okay, I was not. Beforehand?
Let me correct that. In hypothetical discussion, not that it actually was going to happen, but that something like this
Okay.
would occur in the future.
But not knowing that it actually did.
I didn't tell anybody this poll specifically.
I didn't know that, okay, just, I know some speculation was about that, none of us, I don't think, knew that it was happening, okay. Thank you, just to set the record straight. Thank you. Well, welcome there,
Todd Mallory.
Todd.
Red Tail.
Welcome. Good evening. I feel like I'm playing in pea soup right now. I mean, things are so clear, I can see everything here. This is really, this is interesting. You know, I listen to you and I find myself going back. When I was a city manager in Michigan, the motto in the state of Michigan was, with the last person out of the state, please turn off the lights. I mean, we were losing population, we were losing revenue at such a fast rate. There was no opportunity to really ever feel like we were climbing out of it. You never felt like property values could increase. You knew that raising taxes was not an option. There was really no alternative but to constantly cut. And you talk about roads, oh my goodness. I mean, we were literally getting out Band-Aids to try and make anything work because there was literally no option ever available. And it was a really, and it is, continuing to be an extremely tough scenario. So I want to talk a little bit about this whole issue. You obviously have been going through why we're here, why you're going to be looking at this issue. It's been obviously done previously. So as I look at it, the role that I was asked to work and discuss with the city manager and to talk about if you as a board, as policymakers are going to examine this issue, what kind of data can we begin to look at? And then from a process standpoint, I'm a process person. I want to talk about steps and things that can be done. So I have several suggestions that I'd like to have you look at and consider as a board so that we can take this forward from not only discussion tonight, but to some action plans as we move forward towards the future. So with that being said, I wanted to walk through the fact that the city manager said, Todd, we want to look at looking at this issue again. What would you suggest? And from that standpoint, we began to talk about this whole area of looking at polling. Polling is really one of those most realistic pieces that you have from a political standpoint that allows you to sort of look at things, to examine, to determine, you know, without you speculating or maybe walking over to Dave's to see whether or not you think people have an idea of what they want or don't want. And from this, we want to try and use a methodology that we know is time-tested and true and is something that can move forward. So for this survey, we actually had a methodology in place. We actually utilized Clearview Research. Clearview actually is currently doing Palm Beach County's sales tax